Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live broadcast of the Engadget podcast recording. I'm senior editor Devindra Hardwar. Today I'm joined by reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe. Hey, Sherlyn.
Hi.
Amazing person at large, Alex Kranz, our guest for this episode.
Also a
Hey.
freelance
Hey,
tech
Alex.
reporter.
Also a freelance tech
Yeah,
reporter,
I
but,
do freelance. I'm amazing, but the amazing is much more important.
I feel like, that's the
To us.
important title for sure. And our producer,
absolutely.
Ben Ellman. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Hello. Today, the big story for us is what is going on in Texas, kind of how the power grid is failing there. And Alex is a native Texan, so we're going to be diving into all that from her perspective. As always, this is a live recording of the show, so you're going to hear us basically, see all the sausage getting made. So you're going to hear errors and everything. We're not going to be able to chat with you guys during the recording, but we will have some Q&A sessions in between different sections of the show. And that's pretty much it. Is everybody else good to go?
I am ready.
I think I am. I'm looking at the chat.
She's ready.
Hello, chat. Hello, everybody. Please tell Alex what you think of her amazing gamer lighting. Alex has great lighting.
Actually, you have your own office set up now. It's not that you moved, so you need gamer lighting also.
Yeah, we got to get you some hue lights in there.
It's only a matter of time before you also have gamer lighting.
This is where we will all end up. Don't worry. Okay, let's get into the show and have a lot of fun. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, recording, all good. What's up, Internet, and welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm senior editor Devindra Hardwar.
I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe.
Today, it's all about Texas. Let me do that again. Today, it's all about Texas. We are going to be talking about the major storm that happened there and why the power grid failed. And to join us to deconstruct all that is Alex Kranz, our favorite amazing person at large and a freelance tech reporter. Hey, Alex.
Hey, guys. I'm here.
Hey. So, we're going to be diving into all of that. And you're going to know more than you've ever wanted about Texas's infrastructure by the end of this episode. So stay tuned. As always,
and there's other tech news too, just in case there's people here who are like, where's the tech? Don't worry. We know.
Where's the tech? There's always more.
This is tech too. You need electricity to do your tech. It's all tech.
You literally need electricity to charge things. But anyway, this is part
the
of
most
the show.
basic.
So
yes.
let's restart. Go to.
I'm going to do another news.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just do this up. As always, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to the Engadget podcast on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. That's always super helpful. And drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com. So let's move on to what's going on in Texas. And it seems like every day this week, the news has gotten worse and worse. I believe before Valentine's Day is when the storm began, February 13th. And it is a once-in-a-century storm, as people are calling it. There is a ton of snow that fell on Texas. I believe it is still sleeting. Things are still bad. There's freezing rain, kind of everything happening all at once. And, we've seen crazy storms hit all over the U.S., but it seems like it is so much that the infrastructure there just couldn't handle it. Alex, you're a native Texan. Can you give us a rundown? Yeah, what happened? Why is this such a big deal for Texas?
I think a lot of bad things happened at once. So it was around last Wednesday, Thursday, they first got their first really big blast of cold air. And it was a big ice storm.
Yeah.
And, ice storms, doesn't matter where you are, ice storms usually lead to downed power lines. So I have friends who were south of Waco. Yeah, hold on one second. That's UPS.
That's UPS. It's
Perfect.
Okay.
That's
Alex is getting
great
a package. Because this is actually what we do all day, is just run and get packages.
Knew it was happening. I was so excited for my Remarkable 2.
Wait,
do you need to open the door, Alex?
You're going to need to open.
I just had to buzz them in. I'm the only one in my building right now, so no one's going to be stealing my packages.
Okay, feel free to take it from wherever you'd like.
Yeah. All right, so there was a big storm, and I think the first storm kind of hit last Wednesday or Thursday, and with it came a ton of ice. And I think, as we all know, it doesn't matter where you are, if you get a big ice storm, you're going to get down power lines. So a lot of people initially lost their power last Thursday. I had a friend who was without power from Thursday to Monday or Tuesday.
No boy.
and she was living like in an older house
Mhm.
that was all about like really poorly insulated. She didn't even have a heater. She had like a propane heater. It's just she's a rancher, so she was like having to go out every day and smash ice in the troughs so the cattle could drink water.
Mhm.
And she's doing it right now, I assume. It's like on a tractor giving them hay so they can eat, because you don't give them a lot of shelter even in these big storms. It's all about just feeding them enough that they stay warm. And then the really big storm hit like kind of Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
President's Day. And that's when it was less about like, yeah, there was a lot of snow and stuff, but a lot of Texas gets snow. Like the Panhandle gets snow all the
Mhm.
time. I'm from North Texas, from Fort Worth, and we get a whole lot, like we do sleet. We get a lot of sleet there. When I was a
Mhm.
kid, we didn't make snow angels. We made sleet angels.
The
So-
worst kind of angels.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, they're just
you're gross. and
absolutely
wet.
terrible. You're just like,
after
this
that.
is icy and wet,
Yeah.
and you can't eat it. It's crunchy. No, don't do and sleet snowballs hurt. Don't
Oh.
ever throw them at people. But like they definitely are accustomed to a little cold, but this was colder than Alaska. This was negative temperatures. This was sub-zero, and not just in North Texas where they get cold sometimes, but all the way in like South Texas.
All the way
like,
down.
yeah, like Brownsville. Like you're seeing it in Mexico. Like
Yeah.
really,
culprit-
really cold.
I think once again, like over the past few years, we basically dreaded the return of the polar vortex, right? Like every year it comes in, it drains down the temperature across America, but specifically in the Midwest. And now it's reaching all the way into Texas, and Mexico. I think somebody online described it well as the polar vortex is just drunk now, right? It does
Yeah.
not work the way it's supposed to. So normally it is supposed to like use the jet stream to keep a lot of that cold air towards the Arctic, right? And in Canada, now it's coming all the way down. And it is kind of wild to see. Let me tell you guys, I'm outside of Atlanta right now. It just got really cold here. We got some sleet and some freezing temperatures, but it wasn't too bad. So I can't complain. But yeah, I've noticed the South is just not prepared for anything like this. So there are stories of Georgia, South Carolina, everywhere. If there's an inch of snow on the ground, everything grinds to halt because
100%.
these places just cannot get rid of the snow. They don't have the infrastructure to actually take care of it. Nobody knows how to drive in snow very well. And I'm sure that problem is compounded, many, many times now in Texas. Like nobody knows how to deal with this really.
Right. And it's like, I mean, I'll say as an example, it was last week that I realized that the North insulates their pipes.
Oh,
For some reason in my head, I was just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, everybody knows when freezing season comes, you have to go put styrofoam on all your outdoor pipes. That's just what everyone does. No,
Yep.
I guess that's just a South thing. But yeah, so nobody in Texas really winterizes to that degree. And that was a big part of this problem, because not only do the homes not winterize, but the power companies and the power plants don't winterize. I know like both of the nuclear power plants weren't really set up for this kind of cold. And one of them's about 10 miles from my mom's house. And, she's had 0-degree weather every day this week. So when you have it that cold, you just can't do anything. And that's really what's happened is like they never winterized, so they can't make power. So you just get these cascading failures. I know my mom just got a text yesterday and she said it was the most demoralizing time of this whole thing was when she got the text saying boil water. And she's like,
Ooh.
she just wanted
Because,
like a little
the
relief.
sanitation plants cannot.
Was it a
work
boil water
well enough.
advisory?
Yeah.
for
It was a
everybody.
boil water
Gotcha.
advisory. She decided she didn't want to try to take a shower when her power came back on, but also because she assumed the power would go off as soon as she got like the shampoo in her hair.
Yeah.
So she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Whatever happens.
Let's talk
And-
about broadly, by the way, like what makes Texas so different? Because I think a lot of us have gotten the primer about the Texas interconnection and why it's such a unique thing among infrastructure in the U.S. So the U.S. has, the power grid in the U.S. is broken up in many different ways, and the major ones are the Eastern interconnection, the Western interconnection, and then you have Texas kind of down there in the middle.
Not
as
the
its own
whole of
little-
Texas.
Not the whole of Texas, right? Not the Panhandle, not like a lot of the northern areas, but a big chunk of it that is like its own little power island. Why? That's my only question. Why would you do this? Because the resource that should be the most redundant anywhere, anywhere is
Yeah.
power. You never want to have a power failure like this. So yeah, do you have a sense of why that is, Alex?
I think a lot of people are talking about it was because Texas wanted to avoid federal regulation, right?
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's ultimately it. But
And it is deregulated, right?
it
an
is
open
deregulated.
market.
Yeah. It's a completely open market
Mhm.
for the most of Texas,
Yeah.
and they found that like that deregulation actually increased prices. But it was ultimately Texas is the largest producer of energy in the United States,
Sure.
and Texas takes like American individualism to the extreme.
What? I've
Like-
never heard this before. Never. Wow.
So you have that, like, when you have like, oh, there's a chance for there's an opportunity for a lot of money, and there's an opportunity for us to thumb our nose at authority and be a little rugged individualist.
Mhm.
You get ERCOT and like this Texas grid all by its lonesome that can't
Yeah.
like, and it's got a couple of connections. As I understand it, there are a few connections. There's one like to Oklahoma, I think, and one
Yeah.
maybe to Louisiana. So there's
Even to Mexico, apparently. Like,
right.
so
Yeah.
what is ERCOT? Perhaps the most ironically named organization right now, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, which manages the entire, this infrastructure. Yeah, hilarious
Yeah.
name, and also a thing where Texas
Not like
wants to be
Epcot.
so not like Epcot. It's very different, although I'm sure that takes a lot of power too. But the thing about Texas, right, is that it is very individualistic. We're going to take care of ourselves. We have all this power. There have been many instances where Texas needed to be bailed out with power from neighboring states and even Mexico, I believe, right? Like,
Yeah.
it seems like a failure of this whole plan.
Yeah, I think it's very rare that happens just
Mhm.
because Texas is such a big energy producer. Like it's not like, oh, they're a big energy producer by like a scooch,
Yeah.
like no, they're producing a ton of the energy in the United States between the Barnett Shale in North Texas, the Permian Basin,
Mhm.
like just an incredible amount of natural gas, an incredible amount of oil. The fracking was born basically like how we think of fracking now. That was born in Texas.
Mhm.
And then we've got like, they really started to embrace solar, and they really started to embrace wind power, particularly in the Panhandle, which just means they're just always lit up. It's always this thing of like, oh, well, we always have this surplus of energy. We're always making power. Why should we
Mhm.
why should we have to like tie into these other grids and be a part of their
Yeah.
system when like we're the producers?
Who needs
We're
to
the
be a
ones-
society here? And
Yeah.
one thing I've read is that one benefit of this for Texas people is that power is cheap because
Yeah.
you have so many resources and so many ways of getting it. You can choose from different providers, right? Generally, your electric bill in Texas is going to be cheaper than most elsewhere in the U.S., except for when something like this happens. Yeah, so let's talk about like what specifically went wrong here too, because you mentioned renewables, and not surprisingly, a lot of the Texas officials, including the governor, immediately went to, oh yeah, it is absolutely renewables' fault. Greg Abbott said it just shows that fossil fuel is necessary for the state of Texas as well as other states to make sure we will be able to heat our homes in the winter times and cool our homes in the summer times. That's Governor Greg Abbott speaking on Sean Hannity. The problem is that it was absolutely fossil fuels that failed
Yeah.
here, right? It is natural gas, and the fact that those lines froze
Yeah.
is the big problem. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was looking at the numbers, and in 2019, I think maybe almost exactly 20% of energy in Texas was from wind power, right?
Mhm.
And 67% was from natural gas, various forms of natural gas and coal. So wind power it produces a lot. And in fact, I think it's overproducing right now,
Mhm.
but it's a relatively small part of this. And I think that was Abbott just playing to probably the biggest lobby in Texas, which is the energy lobby, and just like kind of throwing them a bone and being like, yeah, I got you. I'm not going to throw you guys under the bus.
Yeah,
because
it is absolutely not your failure as an industry here.
Yeah,
Let's look
and-
over here. Yeah,
And I think it is definitely a failure, right? Like
Mhm.
there are significant failures here. There are problems, and but a lot of it was also just like, this is how they've been doing it for decades. Like
Right,
they
right.
were functioning this way in the 70s and 60s and stuff. And in the
Mhm.
70s and 60s, Republicans weren't even in charge. Like this is very much like it was a
Yeah.
Democrat state. I
Yeah.
know, shocking. But the Democrats were also very different in the 60s and 70s, so not that shocking. But it really was just this like this desire to be by themselves and to be as cheap as possible, to make as much money as possible with as little effort, which is, it's just capitalism, baby. And everything blew up from that, because
I like your phrase, capitalism, baby, because that is literally the failure of everything happening now in America.
I keep comparing it to I've compared it to COVID a lot, because I think it's something where COVID was obviously this huge pandemic, but it exacerbated infrastructure problems in the United States in a really unique way. And this has done the same. And I think Harvey is another good example where where Harvey exacerbated infrastructure problems in Houston. And I talked to a poor friend. She lived through Harvey down in Houston and with 2 kids, which is just, and then she gets out of that and she moves to North Texas, and then she gets in this storm. And I was talking to her and I was like, yeah, you just, it's just a once in a century storm. And she's like, well, I seem to get them every damn 3 years. I'm tired of them. Oh, because climate change.
Because climate change. It does seem like the broader lesson here is, Texas has been running this way for decades, right?
Yeah.
And why fix what ain't broken? It's making us money. It's working out well for everybody.
Working great. Everybody's having a good time.
Yeah.
As long as we don't have climate change completely skunking up the works, which we're also contributing to by our incredible use of fossil fuels. It's fine.
I thought climate change was a myth, at least according to a lot of folks I've talked to in Texas. I don't know. I don't know what it will take for the vast majority of America to kind of acknowledge that this ain't normal and things are changing wildly. But Alex, you brought up the idea of the pandemic too, of how this kind of reveals certain issues in our society. And I think that really is it, right? It is the idea of how do you take care of each other? What do you owe? What do you owe each other as a society? There was a viral tweet that was going around from a former mayor from one Texas, I believe it was Colorado City.
Oh yeah, and Tim Boyd.
Yeah, and his
absolute
Facebook post,
favorite.
Oh my God, his Facebook post was like, "The government doesn't owe you anything. You deserve you deserve to be there."
If you feel that way. Yeah.
He resigned. He resigned the other day.
I was talking to a friend about that last night, and I said, oh, did you hear about this guy in Colorado City?
Yeah.
And he claims he'd already resigned by the time he posted something on Facebook. And she went, oh, that's never a good start. What did he post if he's already claiming he didn't start there? And I loved the piece. I loved what he posted just because it had perfect Texas syntax. Reading it, and I developed an accent just reading it out loud, because he just the way he structured things was just how Texans would do it. But he really was super anti-government, and he was said the power companies don't owe you anything, and in fact they do. You pay them so that you have
at least the basis of capitalism. At least believe in the philosophy you're trying to shove down our throats. They at least owe you for the service you're paying for, right?
Yeah. And he's also I've spoken with other friends who know mayors and officials in small towns, and a lot of small towns are trying to do something. They're trying to source water. They're trying to set up heating centers and warming centers so people can stay warm, and some of them just can't. There's a lot of things happening there because the roads are terrible, and as we already discussed, it's hard to people just don't know how to drive. They get on the snow and the ice, and they just lose their minds, and so you have that happening, and a lot of the people who are getting hurt and injured in this and dying are because they don't have access to heat, and they're trying to create their own warmth, and you're getting carbon monoxide poisoning, you're getting fires and stuff like that. And you just have a lot of people who are really scared and looking for leadership. And it's kind of being struggled to find. I spoke with one friend, with one person who told me that Abbott is really going out there, and he's really trying. He wants some heads to roll. He wants to, And so she was told, oh yeah, we're having to collect very specific instances where the power companies, where the infrastructure has failed, and where leaders have failed to provide, so that we can give that to Abbott so that he can deal with it. And I think a lot of that is him just trying to save his own butt, because he certainly has contributed to the problem. and maybe, you know, he's done some stuff like, yeah, they got a state of emergency declared in Texas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he's let this happen for years and years and years. He's let ERCOT like run the show, and ERCOT is such a weird thing. As I understand it, only like 2 of the board members on it aren't even living in Texas. Like, you've got these people from out of state trying to govern their power and everything, and basically just doing it to get rich. And it was a lot of people glutting at the trough, and then the trough froze, and they're kind of
now the question is, whose fault is it? Except I think in a lot of cases you think the person at the top who enabled this and probably didn't prepare for incoming storms probably deserves a vast majority of the blame here. And also shout out to Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who we saw last night on Twitter. If you were up late, took a plane to Cancun with his family, and
it's
that was
cold
viral
in Texas. He doesn't want to, like, I get it. He doesn't want to be there. I mean,
gonna protect
if
himself.
I was a senator, I would probably like want to get some free political capital by handing out some blankets and stuff instead of hightailing it to Cancun. But which probably only like it's probably like cold. I think it's cold there too, so it's like 50 degrees.
It's a little chilly, but you know he's gonna be. He has to make sure he can survive, right? He needs to put on the life jacket first,
right?
So he can take care of Texas.
Yeah, he shoved the old lady out of the way to put her life jacket on himself.
Exactly. He's George Costanza in the Fire episode of Seinfeld. But let me just say, like, this one thing, this tweet went viral about him. The news about him went viral late Wednesday night, and I also have friends who don't have power, who have had to sleep in their cars for the last few nights because it's the only safe, warm place for them to be. And it is I wish my like white hot rage could power the state of Texas right now, because I feel like it could. It's just a failure on so many levels.
Not even your rage. Yeah. I think Texans' white hot rage could power all of Texas. Like, just plug them all in. I know people are just getting slammed by this and being very and are super furious about it. And I don't think that fury is going to go away anytime soon. I think now that people know what ERCOT is, they're going to be talking about it a lot, and they're going to be asking a lot of questions. Because most people didn't know what ERCOT was. Like, let's be real. Like, even in Texas, even in Texas. No, I knew TXU because that was who I had to call every time the power went out when I was a kid. Like, be sitting there playing Super Nintendo, and the electricity would go off, and your mom would say, "Oh, well, you know, I'm busy. Why don't you go ahead and call TXU and let them know we don't have any power." That was not because of this whole issue, though. That's just because I lived in a very old house.
Right. So for both you and Devendra, Alex, you guys know people in Texas who are, you know, really going through all of this. And for me, my window into this was Twitter and Instagram. And I follow a couple on Instagram that live in Texas, Sean and Catherine Lowe from The Bachelor. And I think they're living in Texas.
Let's just take a pause for that. How are your Bachelor friends doing, Trillin? Please tell us.
Well, they're the best couple from the Bachelor franchise. But still, they've been posting pictures of how they, you know, their kids have been playing in the snow. It's like -5 degrees. And I was like, -5, really? And not Celsius? It's amazing. And it didn't connect for me what was happening, because they made it look like so much fun. And then I realized that's because they're rich and live in these huge houses. So our video producer, Julio, also just highlighted to me this Axios report on how the Texas power outage is highlighting the disparity in minority neighborhoods, which is the case for a lot of these situations, right? Often, like, a national crisis happens and minority like neighborhoods get more adversely affected than others. So one of the things like worth like highlighting is that while urban and downtown areas, which have the most affluent residents, have seemed to be completely exempt from the blackouts, surrounding underprivileged neighborhoods have had to endure like long blackouts, some of which are lasting days. So for me,
there's video footage, by the way, of like office buildings fully lit up. Football fields fully lit up when everyone's like, please save some power.
People in those or something. What bothers me is when I go on Twitter, and so Chrissy Teigen tweeted yesterday like how many celebrity follows just showing up.
Celebrity report over here.
I love it.
Chrissy Teigen tweeted, I think last night, like, how can we help? How can we help Texas? And a lot of people were responding of like their own experiences. And honestly, it was kind of heartbreaking to see. Like one woman I saw had posted like just her collapsed roof and like snow and melted snow all over her bedroom. Another person that responded was saying that they're a high risk person who hasn't even left the house because of COVID. And then now they can't even get groceries and all of that. Like they couldn't even get groceries delivered in the first place or go out to get groceries in the first place. They were having it delivered. Now they don't. So they have no food and they're taking care of a child. So what I'm trying to get to is how can we help, right? And I think that like donating to mutual aid organizations seems to be the most obvious method that I've seen so far. But I don't know if Alex, you might know of a more immediate means of helping.
No, I think that really is the best way, because a lot of this, like, we're in a really bad spot right now, but Texas is actually probably going to get worse when the thaw comes, because think of how many homes that have had frozen pipes, right? There's a lot of places. I know friends who are living in terror for the thaw, because like it's unpleasant now, but when all your pipes explode and flood your home or put big holes in your wall and stuff, that's going to be bad too. And right now there is such difficulty getting to people because the roads are so bad that, like, you know, if you're trying to ship food and trying to ship water and stuff like that, it's not necessarily going to help anyone at this moment. I think giving money to the people that are already on the ground and working on this, especially the Red Cross, is much more beneficial to everybody there. And just really hoping that this thaw, I think it's going to be like, according to my mom, I've been watching the weather too, but my mom is very big on this right now. It looks like probably Saturday, early Sunday is when they're going to finally start seeing temperatures that are comfortable. And it's going to be like devastating. I think you're going to see a lot of homes just really racked by this freezing, especially in Austin, because North Texas, they at least kind of think about like how to structure things to prevent cold, because they do get colder up there. But Austin and anything kind of below Austin is not prepared at all.
Austin is technically Central Texas,
right? It's Central Texas. So you know, and the temperature really starts to change there, and they don't really get below 30 very often. And they're just not equipped in the same way North Texas or the Panhandle is. And I think you're going to see a lot of people losing their homes or having significant damage to their homes. And it's going to look like floods. It's going to look like just a big flood.
It's going to look like a prolonged like aftermath of a hurricane, right? Except without that part of the storm.
Yeah, it's going to be Harvey again, you know, but colder. And I think just donating to those bigger resources is the best thing that people can be doing to help those there. And being patient with people. Don't be a jackass if you see them on Twitter and stuff complaining about it. Man. Like I sometimes even I get heated sometimes when I see folks on Twitter complaining about things because I'm a horrible person. But you know, like, be patient.
I complain about things on Twitter all the time, Alex.
That's why I say be patient. Be
in
kind.
general. Yeah, we've learned to be patient a lot for reasons over here. But one thing I want to point out to you is that I've seen people respond to is like, oh yeah, Texas kind of deserves this, right? You guys elected these folks. And I don't, probably not the time for that. Even Stephen King, a guy who I genuinely like and admire, kind of did that. And it was not great. That's not helpful.
You know, I think there's this eagerness to blame politicians for devastated infrastructure, and that's because we elect politicians to maintain and develop our infrastructure. But the things that are set in motion and the things that happened in Texas were set in motion decades before these politicians were in office. The politicians in office perpetuated it. They made no effort to change it or stop it, because it still made them money. It still made the people they actually care about, the lobbyists and stuff, money. So they didn't. So like there's certainly that kind of blame, but this was an infrastructure failure across the board, and that goes back decades. So it's hard to like point, as much as I want to point fingers at Ted Cruz, he is probably not the person to blame for this. I would love to throw it all at his feet. I'd love to throw it at Abbott's feet, at Paxton's feet, at Daniel's, you know, like all those guys. Like, let's Dan Patrick, let's make fun of those guys, but like, nah, like it's definitely that they've contributed, and
they're the ones who could fix it. Like
they're the ones who could fix it. Yeah, they're the ones who could fix it.
So I think a lot of people deserve blame for at least not acknowledging the reality of like what what was coming down the pipe, right? And being
Yeah, I
careful
mean,
about that.
I don't even know how much they could have prepared for this,
Mhm,
given that they were only hearing about this probably a week in advance, and we saw so
Right.
many people on the ground and just regular citizens who weren't preparing for it substantially, despite knowing it was coming. You know, they weren't stocking up on food and water and everything like that, and because they didn't necessarily think they had to. And
Yep.
I think the government, I think everybody, I think a lot of Texas got caught with his pants down, just assuming that this would hopefully pass faster and be a more traditional
Mhm.
storm. And it sucks because it was not.
Yep. My
And
question for you, Alex, by the way, is like, where can Texas go from here? Like, as ERCOT needs more power, as the state needs more power, can they actually bring in power from neighboring states? Because there are some connections, right?
yeah, there are some connections. I don't think they're substantial enough. And I think that
Okay.
runs the risk of them having to, there was this time in 1975, where they briefly gave power to Oklahoma, and it's called the
Uh-huh.
Midnight Connection. And it kicked off this huge court case where Texas really had to defend its right to maintain its own grid. And I think there's a real hesitancy because they don't want that to happen again. And I think a lot of people think this is a once in a lifetime storm. We can go ahead on after this. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we'll get through it, we'll weather it, and then we'll go ahead on. And what they really need to be thinking about is this is not a once in a lifetime storm, right? Like because of climate change, this is going to become more frequent. It may not happen again next year. We might not see something this catastrophic next year, but it's going to continue to happen. It's going to become more frequent. And they really need to be thinking about addressing it. They need to be thinking about winterizing. They need to be thinking about that. I spoke to somebody in the energy community, and they said, well, the problem is that Texans don't want to pay for that. And they don't and that money's going to need to come from the consumer's pocket, not from the companies. And that was definitely somebody from the energy community saying that, because I was like, oh, I don't know if
we could solve this problem. Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's just money needs to be spent, and we Texans are notoriously cheap people. So unless it's for our hats or boots or trucks. So I'm really it's going to need to be an investment, and it's unclear who is willing to foot the bill for that investment.
It's almost like we need an entire national strategy for dealing with climate change.
Maybe.
I think one one report from Joe Biden's press office was basically like, yeah, it seems like, we should probably preparing for the inevitability of climate change. His plan is like up till 2050, right? To basically make America a lot more prepared for climate change and investing in renewables and rolling that stuff out. And it does seem like that point is going to be stronger and stronger. It's not just Texas. It is everywhere in the country. It is, California that's facing massive wildfires every year. It is down here in the Southeast where the hurricanes batter things down quite a bit. And we also have energy problems. I've just learned to live. One thing I've learned is that in the South, you just lose power for a day or two sometimes after a thunderstorm, because the infrastructure is so badly put together. One thing that may be more common for a lot of us is just to have a generator so that you can have a little backup power, have something. You had mentioned that, Alex. PSA for everybody: you got to learn to live with generators, but also be careful with them because they spew out carbon monoxide. Those things
can be very dangerous. Well, I mean, that's why
dangerous. Yeah,
there's stuff like Powerwall. Elon Musk's big batteries and stuff are really good. But for most people, right now, the thing you can go do right now to help yourself in the future, wherever you live in the United States, is go and buy an uninterrupted power supply. That is only going to cost a couple $100s. It's not a lot. It's very, very cheap. It's not going to give you days and days of power, but it's going to keep your internet on and give you a way to charge your phone when you do lose power and when you are subject to these rolling blackouts.
How long would that last, though? I used to sell those things, and they're great.
They're great.
Okay, I got to keep my computer on for 10 minutes so I can save all my files. But
I think they're really good for the one I have lasts 2 or 3 hours, and and because I have like a server on it and stuff, and I'm really lazy and don't want to have to like go actually power down my server. And so I'm like, usually a power outage when I get hit with one doesn't last an hour or two. So if you're like subject to these rolling blackouts and stuff, investing in a and there's some that even last longer, you can invest in one of those, and that'll kind of help you weather those rolling blackouts a little easier. It's not going to fix anything. It's not as good as a generator, but generators cost thousands of dollars.
5 to 6. Like, listen, I'm in this market. Okay, so $500 to $600.
In this market.
You can actually get
Really?
a gas generator. But the thing is that these things they're engines, right? It's just an engine without a car. So it is spewing out carbon monoxide. It needs to be like 20 feet away from your house, and you need to use like an extension
Nowhere
cord.
near your home.
Nowhere near your home. Nowhere, not in a garage. People are dying because of this. But also, it's not just generators. It is people who are heating themselves up in their cars while they're in an enclosed space. Not smart. Please don't do that. People who are trying to heat their homes with, a gas stove. Hey,
don't do that.
Cook something, like do your meal, bake something, but do not rely on that as consistent power, because hey, gas stoves are incredibly dangerous too. And that's a thing we should probably be talking about more, is that they're spewing out all sorts of fumes too, and you're breathing it, and that's just the way we've lived. But people are dying from heating their homes with those too. So let's just be careful. Everybody prepare. There are
bundle up.
There are like all electric generators, which are kind of interesting. So like basically a massive battery that costs $1,000 to $1,500, but it'll last you for like hours. It could last you almost like a day if you're like sipping that power. So there are more solutions for backup power for people, and maybe that's something we'd have to consider more, because it's going to be a while until our infrastructure is better. Alex, like, what do you see moving forward for Texas? To wrap this up.
Yeah,
it does seem like renewables kind of makes more sense, but we need battery backups for dealing with situations like this, because you can't really use wind during a major storm either. But I don't think that discounts the power.
I mean, there. I think renewables are Texas is already really heavily invested in renewables, as much as like they want to pay lip service to the oil and gas guys. It is heavily invested, and the big conflict there is that you have some of the oil and gas guys, the people who are pulling it up out of the ground. They don't want it. And then you have a lot of the agriculture community. They don't want it because it takes over that valuable ag land. So you do have a lot of conflict there. But renewables are popular in Texas. They're not going away. And Texas is such an individualism state. They're so prideful that a lot of people want to be off the grid anyway. Like,
sure, yeah. It seems like the best place to sell the idea of like, go fully off the grid, please.
Yeah, so I think you are going to see renewables being embraced. They're already being embraced, but I think you're going to see even more of it from folks, especially in rural communities, where they're just tired of all of this. Like they've been hit time and time again, and they get tired of it, and they feel like they're ignored. And so, fine, they're just gonna go play with their football elsewhere, which is how ironic, because that's how Texas got in this mess to begin with.
Yep, most definitely. I hope after all this, like, America takes a closer look at infrastructure, because it's something I think policy nerds have talked about for a very long time, and everyone's like, no, shut up, we're making money. Like, why are you ruining my party here? It's getting worse and worse. Yeah, go ahead.
I want everyone to read Annalee Newitz. Just wrote this great book called Four Lost Cities. I was tweeting about it, and it's wonderful because it's about these four famous historical cities like Pompeii, Angkor Wat, Cahokia, and why people left them. And so much of it focuses on when we think about infrastructure for financial or political reasons, our infrastructure inevitably fails. When we think about infrastructure for just basic survival, because that's why infrastructure exists.
You mean the public good?
Yeah, when you think
that's
about
not American.
Yeah, when you think about it in the idea of the public good, it lasts longer. And it's a really, really fascinating book. She does a super, super great job of like just breaking down like all this big archaeological concepts and stuff, and makes it super, super readable, very, very easy to read. But she also really gets at the heart of what we're seeing here, what we saw in California last year with the wildfires, what we're going to see the next time a hurricane just wrecks the South. And I highly, highly recommend it. Four Lost Cities, Annalee Newitz. Go read it. It'll make you feel really smart.
I believe in one of the more recent episodes of her podcast with Charlie Jane Anders, the like original IO9 crew, right? The podcast is called Our Opinions Are Correct, and she like dives into some of those ideas. So worth checking out. Thank you for the shout out there, Alex.
Yeah.
Let's not forget we have a lot of other infrastructure things we got to worry about. It was not too long ago. It was 2 weeks ago that somebody tried to hack the water supply in Oldsmar, Florida, to basically poison it. Luckily, it was caught, but they did try. And I do feel like there are going to be a lot of people just poking holes in our system to like figure out like, oh, what can I mess up this time? Does not bode well for our future. This storm is one thing. Like the storm in Texas is pure just incompetence from leadership, but there are a lot of other things we have to worry about. So yeah, I hope we learn something from all this.
Invest in infrastructure. Do it,
Please.
people.
Please. Okay, we can take a break here.
Yeah.
I think we got Q&A.
Yeah, we got some Q&A. There was actually one very, very early. Like, can we compare this between, can we compare what's happening in Texas right now to what happened in California? Or like what happens habitually in California? And so, like, is this so the same? Like, I think this is more of a question for Alex than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very similar, right? Like in both instances, you have people in California, you had power companies just not wanting to invest in better power lines and stuff to be protected and not cause forest fires and not get blown over by all these winds and stuff. And it's the same thing. It's people being cheap and not wanting to invest in what they have to maintain it, and just hope that like these once in a lifetime storms stay once in a lifetime, and refusing to acknowledge that they are not once in a lifetime. They are going to be consistently happening because climate change. It's a bummer.
So a Samuel Dominguez said, my cousin works in wind turbine industries in West Texas, where most of our turbines are, and he said that they have de-icing technology to allow them to work in cold weather like this. But
they weren't working.
They weren't working.
No, they are. As I understand it, like there was a couple of days where they weren't working on those really, really cold days, but the windmills or whatever, the turbines, they've been functioning. They've in fact overperforming. They're providing a lot of more power than people expected because it's super windy and stuff. And they were never part of the problem. They were never part of the problem. The only reason they were highlighted was because political opportunists want to attack green energy for their own like stupid purposes.
Yeah, I saw something around on the internet about how, like, you know, there was some picture of people de-icing wind turbines, and
it was from
like,
2014.
Yeah, it was like 2014, and also Sweden.
And also a demo. It was not even like a real. It was a demo of that technology.
So I mean, but that is like the classic thing of internet misinformation. You can just decontextualize a picture, and all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh yes, this is absolutely what's going on." Like
the thing is, solar and wind power are super, super cheap, and that's why Texas has been investing so much in it, because the gains they get from it are really, really fantastic. The problems with it is solar and wind power are harder to store the power. It's kind of you use it or lose it power.
Problem.
Yeah, and so like, you know, you got to work on these storing mechanisms, which cost money, and again, people are cheap, but they are so far from the problem. And anybody who's telling you that they're the problem is either ignorant or in the pocket of somebody who wants you to think it's the problem.
Don't mind if I do my quick little shout out to the chat as usual. Krishna Chaitanya, I think, says, hello. May I know what's going on here? I just joined. Hi. This is a question and answer segment in between us recording the podcast that we put out every week on audio platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
That's a good question. You can always, by the way, like join us now, but rewind this video. Go back to the beginning. You could watch it all. It's all up here. Yeah.
But the live chat is fun because you get to make friends. I see Killer Goose or the Killer Goose ask if Sam and Mark, that's Samuel Dominguez and Mark Dell, one of our regulars, would mind adding them on Discord. Hey, love it that y'all are making friends with each other.
There is
even if we can't friend you on Discord, you can friend each other.
I love Discord.
Yes, but hi to everyone. As always, our regular viewer Mark Dell's here answering for everyone, but we got a lot of new names this time around. People are.
It was me. I brought them. I brought everybody.
It was you. It was all the
Yeah.
Texas talk.
It was the Texas talk. Howdy, y'all. I know I should have worn. I have a really ugly cowboy hat. I thought about wearing it, but it's like a snakeskin cowboy hat I bought in Nashville in like 2001. So
why would a Texan buy a
no.
cowboy hat in Nashville?
Yeah,
That
it's not
seems
even a real
wrong.
one. Like it's stinky. But there's a guy. If you're ever in Texas, if you go to Fort Worth, go to Northside. There's a place called Best Hats. Find Donnie. He'll hook you up with a really good
Yeah.
actual cowboy hat. That's where I'm going if I'm ever able to make it to Texas again. Come on,
I hope
COVID.
so.
Hello, Texas.
Come on, COVID.
Peanut Air says belated Happy Lunar New Year to us all. Happy Lunar New Year to you. Well, I'm not allowed to say it, so don't take my greetings. But it's still day 7, so you're still within. It's not belated at all. It's
Wait,
still the
why
new
are
year.
you not allowed to say it?
Death in the family?
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Alex fan club is here apparently, so there we go.
Love to bring the fan club.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and so I mean, a lot of the people were in general just talking about energy policy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love
Right,
it.
and where does the Celsius and Fahrenheit scales meet? And we're all like -40. It's all -40.
It's true.
And it's not going to get to -40 in Texas, but
Hopefully.
it is really notable that it
Mhm.
has gotten down to the negatives on Fahrenheit.
Yes.
Fahrenheit
Yeah.
is the scale of
Yep.
temperature that is for humans, not for water.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever hit negative or sub-zero temperatures, I was living in like on a mountain in Tennessee. Like Texas,
Yeah.
just especially Panhandle sometimes gets really, really cold, but the rest of Texas does not. This
Yeah.
is not a temperature they're
I
used
grew up-
to.
I grew up in New England. Never negative. Like
Yeah.
I do not remember ever
Rarely
hitting
negative. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
we were still all around the like New York area for the
Yeah.
our polar vortex in what was that 2014 or something? Like,
Yep.
Loved it.
that was like
No.
a month and a half or more of we were below freezing. Just like
Yeah, just below freezing.
That
That
was-
was the point where I was like, I gotta get
24/7.
out of here. Like I don't know if I could take this.
I had just moved to New York in 2014, and I thought that
Mhm.
was just New York weather.
oh
like-
no, that
Oh,
was,
boy.
I was just like, yeah, I guess it's just always like this in the winter.
No, that's like Chicago weather, not New York weather.
Sherlyn didn't
Ugh.
correct me once. Like
I was
really.
not paying attention to you. I was paying attention to the chat, and that's why I didn't correct you once. No, I love doing my Fahrenheit Celsius math all the time because I just guess at this point because I know both. I'm pretty familiar with both. And negative. Anytime I hear negative, I always have to go Celsius because Celsius negative is like
Yeah.
more
It's
common.
below-
Sherlyn
it's
always
below
has to
water
lord her
freezing
international
temperature.
education over
I
us.
mean
Come on,
to tell
Sherlyn.
ya.
Oh,
Miss
jeez.
Fancy Pants over here.
Yeah.
32-0. Y'all
Yeah,
can
so
figure out. Or is it 33 or 35?
most
I
people
It's
are
32.
talking about like
Yeah.
energy policy and stuff. Like the Killer Goose, who just got a shout out a little bit earlier, said that they're on the Quebec power grid,
Hmm.
and like Quebec actually may still be running some coal plants. However, that's just information that I got from
Yep.
elsewhere in the chat. That is not.
Yeah. Well, and I
just-
think
yeah.
their power, their is it their grid that like is in the United States too? Like it kind of seeps in up in one of them
Yep.
Dakotas or something.
I am not sure about. I think that there may be a unified grid that goes from like kind of the northeastern United States up to Canada, because then there was that
There
situation
is, yeah.
in the early 2000s where there was that huge blackout throughout the Northeast, and
Oh,
it
yeah, I
was
remember that.
because of an issue with
Mhm.
the grid that connected like US and Canada. So yeah, really just like a lot of people talking about their own personal stuff, what they pay for power and whatnot. The Canadian hydro bills are always a little bit cheaper.
Mhm.
I have a relative who like lived in Canada for a while, like gained his Canadian citizenship, married a Canadian,
Mhm.
has been living in Florida for like 20 years or more, still calls his power bill the hydro bill, as if he is like a college student who just came back and says, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back to my flat."
I love it.
So the exact opposite of what I do, but gotcha.
Yeah.
I think like Ben has been saying, the chat's mostly been fewer questions and more about people with their own experiences too. I think StarTalk just joined and asked for a recap. I feel like at this point we're gonna move forward.
Yourself.
I'm sorry, we kind of have to move on. There's more content to get through.
We'll have more Q&A after all this.
Yes, we'll have more Q&A after we get through.
Alex, I do like how you found the tech angle in talking about this. Like, oh, okay, and when the power was out in Texas and I was playing Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, no, that was just because
central theme here.
I lived in a 100-year-old farmhouse with infrastructure, that they never invested in better wiring for. So it was all built in like the 1900s and 1920s. And so like you'd sneeze and the power would go out, and we got our water from a well. So we also would lose water every time, and we'd have to go to the stock tank, like little 10-year-old Alex with a bucket going to the stock tank and filling it with water so she could flush a toilet. Rootin' tootin' party time there in Texas. So
yeah, that seems wholesome in a way, but it's also like
it was deeply unpleasant. Like it was not fun. Like all of our heat until the 90s was from floor furnaces. So there were furnaces in the floor, and there was a metal grate, and you didn't stand on it.
That sounds like
it was gas. It was gas.
Oh boy.
And then we had these two heaters also powered by gas. That like one in the window room, which is like where we ate, and I don't know why we called it that, but yeah, so it was all like it was real old fashioned. And I never forget when we finally got central heating. We never had central air when I lived there, but finally got central heating in the late 90s, and I was like, wow, there's a thermostat. I can adjust the heat. I don't just have to wear like 4 pairs of clothes as I move around the house and avoid the giant hot spot. And hope my sister, the time my little sister or my big sister got sick and threw up into a floor furnace that was on.
Oh, that's what I thought we were going for.
Yeah.
Ooh, gross.
You don't forget that.
So Super Nintendo is what you were talking about, and then we got here. Excellent.
Yeah, so Super Nintendo. But I think power is integral to technology, and we need to be thinking about other ways to save power as our processors get faster and more power hungry, and our GPUs get faster and more power hungry, and our TVs get faster and brighter and more power hungry. We need to be thinking about how we can conserve power and how we can be. That's why I'm a fan of e-ink.
We'll talk more about that soon.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
We'll get to that.
Okay, before we move completely on, this is actually something that I've been wondering. Like, I was under the impression that even the top end TVs use less power than the deepest possible TVs. The like late 90s, early 2000s.
Than the old ones, yeah. There are so many more of them now.
Okay,
yeah. There's everybody has multiple more TVs.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you went from having one big TV in your home to I have 3 and I live in a 1-bedroom. So
you may have a problem. Like I'm just
for everyone that's like a regular of our podcast, by the way, Alex is the friend that gave me my old TV.
Yay.
So I took one of her many, many secondhand TVs.
I don't maybe I do have a problem. Maybe I'm definitely not using a 48-inch TV. Listen, as my computer monitor right now.
We all have a problem right now, and also that's insane. Come on.
It's so big. It's so big. Like
it's way too big.
Every time you see me looking off, I'm just looking at another part of my screen.
You just look at the start menu. You're like,
but it's over there. Yeah. And it's a mess, but I love it. It's playing Civilizations on 48-inch TV close to my face. That's what I did last night.
Fun.
All right,
let's move on.
Charlene, you're up for this.
Okay, and we'll knock out a bunch of other news. Like, let's just knock it out quick. Do you want to do?
Yeah, we'll clear all the news right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take care of most of it.
Okay,
I was just trying to sign in to our CMS, but that's not happening, I guess. All right. So there's been a lot of, sorry, let me start again. There's been a lot of, okay. There's been a lot of news, other parts of tech and the world as well, starting with Facebook and Google versus Australia. There's been a lot of updates this week on this ongoing case, but let's give you guys a recap. This story starts as far back as at least April 2020, where Australia ordered its Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, to create a mandatory code of conduct that would make companies like Facebook and Google and others like that to pay news outlets when they use publishers' content or the news outlets' content. It would also look at data sharing, news ranking, revenue sharing, that sort of thing. So that was in April last year, and it's been going on. But this week, we've got a lot of developments on this case, starting with, well, at least in January, Google threatened that to disable its search engine in Australia if it has to pay for news.
Yeah.
But one of the first things that happened, I think, this week was I'm trying to get my timeline right, but Google, I think, agreed or said it would pay News Corp outlets for using their content. So basically, it's sort of like kind of yielded to the pressure from Australia. This was just yesterday, I believe, February 17th. Google signed a 3-year agreement, it was announced, to carry content from News Corp publications. So this would be in the US, UK, and Australia. And it would show up under Google's News Showcase, stories from publications like the Wall Street Journal, MarketWatch, and other outlets. The payments that Google would make to News Corp weren't disclosed, but News Corp did say that it would be significant. And there's, parts of the contract here that talk about sharing ad revenue, investing in audio and video content from the News Corp publications, and developing a subscription platform. This, for me, as someone who's covered like Google's news initiatives for a while, didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. Until you realize that it seems to be related to this pressure coming from Australia. So that's Google. But then when we talk about Facebook for a second, let's Facebook our very drama-free queen. Also yesterday, February 17th, Facebook decided to block users from sharing news links in Australia. It issued the threat. I want to say in September of 2020, and followed through basically yesterday, saying that, we're going to ban y'all from viewing news on Facebook. So publishers and residents can't post or share news content on the social network. And even if you're, say, in America and you're trying to, post something from the Sydney Morning Herald, I believe, you can't do that. So basically, you can't post or share links from Australian publishers. So this Facebook was more clear and direct that this is about Australia's attempt at making everyone, pay for those for news news content. And they're pretty pissed at it. They were like, okay, so William Easton, who is Facebook's managing director for Australia and New Zealand, wrote in a blog post saying, "We will now prioritize investments to other countries as part of our plans to invest in new licensing, news programs, and experiences," which is as nyeh as it gets, right? It's we're not going to, well, since you don't want our business, we're going to take our business elsewhere. I don't know. How do you feel about this, Devindra? Because I feel like a little distant from this issue. Like I don't use Facebook. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, but listen, a ton of people do, and this is part of why I don't like Facebook as a company, especially whenever they do anything around media. It's either about like, oh, please everybody do what we're asking, everybody shift all of your employees to video. Let's rebuild your editorial strategy around video. 2 years later, Facebook's like, oh, we don't like video, like all those people you hire, just change it.
Oh, no.
So Facebook has pushed and pulled the media industry so much over the last decade, where this just seems like the latest example of it. But I'm certainly not pleased with this. It does seem like them wielding their power in a weird way, and Google too. Like Facebook is not alone here. This is everything we've warned about when it comes to having these giant companies basically take over the internet and be the internet for a lot of people, right? At the basis of the internet is freely sharing information, and thanks to a lot of these business deals and things Facebook doesn't want to happen, they can just block information completely from Australia. And hey, I don't know if it's the right choice for the government there
Mhm.
to kind of say, hey, you got to pay us. It is kind of a start, though. It is it's the beginning of pushing back against
It's an
these.
attempt.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something. It may not be the best
Yeah.
thing, but I do appreciate the fact that Australia is trying to fight back against these like tech monopolies. And yeah, both Facebook and Google, all they can say is like, well, we're gonna go home. We're gonna take our ball and go home. We got to push back more. Yeah.
Yeah, as people who work in news or for news outlets or in media, right? I personally feel like, yeah, if we got a cut of the traffic that was generated on these things, like on these platforms, we would not, digital media wouldn't be in the mess it is today. Maybe, I don't know. But to clarify though, Google and Facebook apparently have issues with the arbitration clauses in what Australia is trying to legislate. So it's more like about the payment rates, whether it will be on a per click basis or on a lump sum basis to have this content hosted on their platforms. And it also sounds like Facebook might be close to, striking deals with publishers, similar to how Google, had its deal set up with News Corp. But according to Easton's blog post too, by the way, which, don't take my tone reading it into this, but news makes up less than 4% of the content people see in their news feed. So
what's in their news
apparently,
feed?
Yeah, just post cat pictures, I guess. So basically what Facebook or what Easton seems to be saying is that like this change doesn't affect Facebook bottom line that much, or it doesn't affect the amount of content that they do host or post to Facebook that much too. So don't know what kind of impact this might have, but I would say like 4% of like 1 billion is still a lot. So
kind of a lot. Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily trust Facebook's numbers, given that just yesterday it was also came out that they like knowingly were playing funny with a lot of the numbers and stuff, their revenue numbers and stuff like that. Like Facebook just can't be trusted. Nothing that it says can be assured to be the truth. And maybe Australian news only accounts for 4%, but
right.
I suspect given the most popular faces, like pages on Facebook for years now have been really conservative news outlets. I'm not really believing that news is a very small part.
Or what do you call news? Yeah. Or
news. Yeah. And I personally was not crazy about Australia's thing just because it was like the Australian government determining who and who wasn't a news outlet. And that's hinky to me. But like, you got to do something because you have like this huge duopoly running, just destroying news across the world and putting up like really horrible rhetoric in its place because it's more clickable. And that's a significant problem. I don't think, given all of the investigations by Congress into these companies as monopolies, I feel like cutting an entire country off, probably not the best. Best move. That feels unwise.
We'll see too. Like Facebook is in a weird transition phase right now too. Like they're beginning to roll out their their council, right? The people who are voting on everything. And that is a whole thing. There was a great New Yorker story last week about a reporter who was following the building of that. And I believe it was also either in the Daily Podcast or one of those like major tech podcasts where they were diving into like just her experience seeing the stuff happen in the background and how it's going to be really difficult for the Facebook council, to even get the Facebook board, right?
The oversight committee.
Oversight committee. Yeah. It is going to be really tough for anybody to agree on anything because every country handles topics differently. What is, censorship for one country is freedom of speech for another, and is very confusing. So Facebook is kind of at an impasse. We'll be paying attention to how things change moving forward. Like there's always going to be more Facebook news, it seems.
I love it.
Nonstop.
Well, I don't love Facebook, but I love news.
Yeah, I love news.
News is great.
Dedicated our lives to news. Yeah.
I'm not sure you like this next piece of news, Alex,
oh, no.
but I'm sure you know. There was some furor this week over LastPass.
I didn't actually know.
Changes.
Tell me about
there
this.
you go. Okay.
I just stopped using LastPass last week.
Dev, do you wanna catch her up?
I could talk about this one. So it used to be that you could just use LastPass for free, right? On your computer and your phone.
That's how I did it.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
believe they had like a device limit, so there was that.
Mhm.
So LastPass this week announced that, hey, you can use as many phones or as many computers as you like, but you have to pick one category,
No.
which is fundamentally useless.
That's
to
not
me.
why I use exactly.
That's not why I use LastPass. I used to have all my passwords across everything. So as of
Exactly.
March
Is it-
16th, you will have to pay to use cross-platform.
So it's just like a way to force people to pay.
to pay.
Okay.
Basically.
I mean-
Which, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. I just like switched last week at the urging of some friends to one password because they were like,
Mm.
"Why are you still using LastPass? Ugh, it's so passe."
You can't talk to tech people. Like I feel
Yeah,
like
I
tech
was like,
nerds will always have
alright.
another thing to.
So-
Okay, so what's the advantage of OnePass?
I pay money for it, so that seemed like a disadvantage, but it's pretty. It seems smarter about how it like interacts with my devices and stuff. Like it seems easier to like. There was always these weird little hiccups with LastPass, and so one password seems a lot nicer. But I was also kind of kicking myself because I was like, why am I paying money for this when I used LastPass
Yeah.
for free?
It was
And now I'm
free.
like, okay, thanks
Yeah.
LastPass.
LastPass is going to be $27. It's a discount for them right now, $27 a year or $225 per month. So actually, not that much. And
Yeah, it's not bad.
hey,
It's cheaper than one password.
it used to be really tough to like use one of these password managers, but these days they hook into Windows and OS 10, like
Mhm.
OS X, so easily, and even iOS and Android. Like that's the thing. Like once LastPass just started popping up within iOS, it became a much more useful tool because it would automatically go fetch that info, Face ID, to secure it, and that's it. You have your login right there.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's beautiful. And it even like it works on all of my devices because I've got like Android e-ink devices and all this other weird stuff that that everybody makes fun of me for and I like it works a lot nicer and neater than
You're saying
LastPass.
OnePassword works a lot
Yeah,
nicer?
one
Okay.
password. Yeah.
Okay.
Like LastPass always felt kind of like, well, it's free, so it's fine.
Sure.
But once I started paying for OnePass, I was like, oh, this is why people pay. So is LastPass like gonna give you additional stuff? Is it improving in some way as it charges?
I hope so. They haven't really said much else.
Just that they're
Yeah.
charging. Okay. I mean, I can't wait to
They-
hear
they've-
more.
They just
I
say
know.
additional value and new features are coming to LastPass Premium, including a security dashboard, dark web
Ooh.
monitoring, secure password and item sharing,
Ooh.
which already exists. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
what is
the
dark
the
web
rhetoric,
monitoring?
the
What does
rhetoric that I think.
mean? No, Shirley, what is that? I have to know what
No,
dark web...
I think they're looking for your passwords on these so-called
On the dark web.
bumps. Yeah,
Okay,
basically.
I was just like imagining like some poor old fart like my uncle is gonna be like,
Oh.
I know, I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna be
On
able
the
to
dark
monitor
web.
the dark web. Like this is how I get on the dark web. But that makes
Sure.
a lot more sense that it's looking for your password.
Yeah.
That makes
Well,
much more
ay.
sense than like
so
a gateway.
LastPass issued a statement around this too, right? They're saying that the rhetoric is that this is part of our increased focus on delivering future premium product improvements. Over the coming months and years, users will continue to see new features added to LastPass Premium, in addition to what's included today, the stuff that Devendra brought up. And then saying that this update also brings our free solution in line with other leading password managers who have more limitations on their free offering. So basically saying we're still better than them.
Yeah.
So from what you said,
Disagree.
Alex, it does. I don't know. It does sound. I don't know. I don't know if I
I
agree
mean,
or disagree.
yeah. I
haven't
love
used many
their thing
others.
is basically everybody else charges, so
Yeah.
we should
What are we
too.
doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
which I respect it. You gotta hustle for the money, but
Yeah.
LastPass
Yeah,
is
yeah.
so unpolished compared to one password or
Damn
Dashlane
it,
and
Alex! You may
stuff.
have sold me on one password. This is
Yeah,
how the virus. Okay.
it's
Let's
great.
move on.
Yay.
All right, sorry.
What else?
All
What
right, so next up, lots of other news happened this week. One thing I covered and went up on the site yesterday is Google announced a slew of upgrades or updates for its Learning with Google services. So basically, Google Workspace for Education, also formerly known as Google Suite or G Suite for Education. And there's like more than 50 updates in this set of announcements, but I'll point out a few. For example,
So many
teachers. So if you use Google Classroom in your school, your teachers can soon, I think in the coming weeks, have the option to mute all participants in Meet. And in April, they'll be able to control when students can unmute themselves, which I'm surprised they didn't have that before.
That's
Hey,
terrifying.
this sounds like a Google product, baby.
That's terrifying.
But I'm glad they're getting it in the coming weeks and in April because
Oh,
those
man.
kids need to be muted. You know what I mean?
I kind of so I feel like every week, Sherlyn, when we talk about Google News, you sound like a very tired Google PR person. It's like, hey guys, this week Google's rolling out features that should have been there from launch, but hey, it's great that it's here
But
now,
it's coming.
right? It's coming.
It's coming. I love Google, bless their hearts, but
I
this
know
is
you still
very
use an
interesting.
Android phone, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Don't what? Why do I detect a note of judgment?
You know, I'm happy for you.
I'm happy for
Oh,
you.
really?
Yeah, it's weird.
I have
You
an
do
iPhone. I
you.
just don't use it.
Yeah, you do.
Man,
you.
y'all are mean.
You do you.
No. Moderation controls like screen sharing, granting entry to meetings, chat access are coming to mobile devices for teachers in the coming months too.
How do you roll this out and not have that there, at least even for mobile devices? Like it's
How many
Basically.
people are
Don't even-
using Google? Is it Classroom? Is that what it's called?
that is very. I don't
Yeah,
know
there's
if
a
that
classroom tool,
service is very popular, but Chromebooks and everything, like a lot
Yeah.
of schools and a lot of IT,
Exactly.
Organizations really like Google stuff for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is that Chromebooks are so popular in schools. They're pretty basic, they're fairly cheap, and then
Yeah.
You just can't mute the children when they're like
kids.
talking about their dinosaurs. Like,
Exactly. But here's the other thing. In a few weeks, teachers will also be able to set up breakout rooms. Breakout rooms, that would be sad. Breakout
Aw.
rooms in a Meet ahead of time. So like you can schedule a Meet coming up, and then you can go in there and already set up
Yeah.
all your breakout rooms. I don't think you
Yeah.
can do that on Zoom yet, but you might. I'm not sure.
We need
That's
all the
cool.
class to go to the breakout rooms except for Bobby and Mindy. You're going to the breakup room, and I'm
Like,
sorry.
We gotta talk.
just
Yeah.
really
We
unhealthy
gotta-
relationship.
Yeah.
You guys
Exactly,
hold each other's
exactly.
finger too long on the way to the lunchroom. The digital
You
lunch.
raised your hand too long. And then they'll be able to get copies of meeting transcripts as well. So that's some of the Meet stuff. I also wanted to point out the two more things from the Google Education updates, which is one, if teachers are grading things on the app, on the Android app of Classroom, it's just about to get a bunch easier. There's like better editing. Students can also submit homework from the Android app too and get like rich text formatting. They can also get better offline support. So if you have intermittent internet connection, you can still submit your homework. It's just, no more excuses when there's an outage in your neighborhood, the cell, like the fiber is down or whatever. You can still submit your homework offline. And then
That's
finally,
rude.
I know.
Yeah.
Poor kids.
I'm
know-
waiting for the tech company to be like, homework is wrong. Let's just down with homework.
Yeah.
I would support that tech company.
Way better than like narking on these poor kids.
Yeah. Come on.
You're a dad, Devendra, and you don't want
Homework
your
is
kid to do
wrong.
homework.
Is
Okay.
wrong.
Okay.
Having grown up, just spending so much of my childhood doing like pages and pages of homework every day.
Yeah.
And then you become an adult and you're like, what did I need to do that?
What
Did
did
that
they
did
accomplish?
I just waste my life
Yeah.
doing garbage busy work, and that's what it teaches you for life? Anyway, that's a personal thing. We will be talking
I
about that
know.
in the future.
Oh,
I
no,
think kids
we-
should
we-
play. Yeah.
We can talk about that, but also talk about how I never actually really submitted homework in Singapore to begin with, and my teachers had to beg me to turn stuff in. This is
Oh,
pretty sad. I felt very
Sherlyn
bad.
coming from a place of privilege once again. Like,
Mm.
Oh no, it was
didn't
just
even have to
being
do
a
her work.
terrible student. I barely passed my exams. The last thing I want to shout out from Google's set of education updates is, yes, we pointed out Chromebooks are a very popular device in schools. So Chrome OS is something that kids use in a lot of these learning or educational environments. Chrome OS is getting some updates too, including a built-in screen recorder, which I think is
Ooh.
nice. So I
Nice,
can't imagine
yeah.
a scenario where someone would use it, but I would totally screen record
It's
everything.
for a teacher, like, just, hey, kids,
is for
follow me
us.
doing this.
Yeah,
no,
just
no.
do
It is
this.
it is exclusively for tech journalists who like just need to record it for video.
For the love of
Exactly.
God, let
it.
me
On
record
the
some
the
screen.
what is it,
Yeah.
8 gigabytes of storage usually found on
yeah.
a Chromebook.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe more like 32. I don't know, because I
It's
feel like
16 to 32, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Or 128
Ugh.
is a high end Chromebook. Yeah, 128. gigs.
Fancy.
High-end
and-
Chromebook. Get
In
outta
addition,
here.
it's getting some like accessibility updates, which I like to point out because it's
Mhm.
important to point out. Chrome Vox, the screen reader that's on Chrome OS, has new features including improved tutorials, ability to search for Chrome Vox menus, and voice switching that will automatically change the screen reader's voice based on the language of the text. I'm not entirely sure what the benefit is here, but I also don't really use a screen reader,
Mhm.
so but hopefully that benefits people who need it.
Mhm.
Now, outside of Google News, Jesus, there was a lot of news this week.
I could do my. Let me do Microsoft.
You can do
How about
Microsoft.
that?
No, yeah,
So
but
give Sherlyn a break.
I was no.
Sherlyn needs a break
no.
after trying to do PR for
No.
Google.
That
for the
was my
last 10 minutes.
Like, do you need to go
Damn
drink
it.
some water?
No, I'm good. I'm going to transition and throw to you, Dev.
Okay, sure. Well, actually, speaking of accessibility, this is a good lead
Okay,
into
you
this.
can do it.
Microsoft announced that they've launched a program to test Xbox and PC games to make them more accessible. So basically,
Oh.
developers
Yep.
can submit their games to this program, and Microsoft is going to like compare it against their new accessibility rules, and that's kind of cool. So developers will see
dope.
like, oh, the way you set things up
Yes.
to control characters or something is hard for people who have problems maneuvering like that. And
Yes.
this goes hand in hand with the Xbox adaptive controller they
Yep.
released in 2018, which
Mhm.
really opens up how people can game, because for a lot of folks a traditional gamepad is hard. It's hard to deal with.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
have better ways of doing that. So shout out to Microsoft. I actually really appreciate them for focusing on this. There are a lot of stories about veterans and people coming out of war too who use video games as a way to as therapy, and they're coming back with injuries, potentially with lost limbs or something, and like something like this makes it all the more easier for them to play. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
And it feels like Microsoft kind of had to do it because I think the most accessible game right now, the one that's like the high watermark, is a Sony exclusive, right? Like The Last of Us 2 is just like, I've heard so many extraordinary things about it from an accessibility standpoint.
Sure.
And Microsoft
sound designed that game.
Yeah, Microsoft's done such a good job with hardware, but like I read this guy talking about how Last of Us 2 was the first game he ever played. He's blind and he was able to play the whole game and not like die. And there were so many features for him. So I love that like game designers are thinking about this and the publishers are thinking about this. That's fantastic.
It's kind of cool. In when I speak of Last of Us 2, like that was a game that really relied heavily on sound design. There is a group of people who mainly communicated through whistles. And like that's the only way you'd hear like this distant whistling and then like an arrow flying by your face or something. So it's like you learn to like figure out the language of when they would call each other or when they start to like circle you or something. So yeah, I want more games to take advantage of all that. And actually kind of tied into that, Microsoft is announcing a new Xbox wireless headset for $100. It's going to be ready for like their spatial audio tech or like the Dolby Atmos stuff. I use Dolby on my Xbox, and that is super helpful. Like it looks like it's just a nice pair of headphones. It's $100. It's not too much. It's competing against Sony's one that just released with the PS5 too.
Yeah,
there doesn't seem like there's much remarkable about it, but there aren't many truly wireless Xbox headphones because you have to use Microsoft's proprietary audio codec. So there's one from SteelSeries, I believe, like one or two others.
There's
so
a decent one from Razer.
Yeah, actually, yeah, they just announced that. I'm a SteelSeries fan, so I just tend to follow all that they do. But this seems like a good thing for Microsoft to push out there. One more thing, I wrote about the new FPS Boost feature that is coming to the Xbox Series X and S, and this is the thing that lets some backwards compatible games run at a much faster resolution. So this week they launched it for Sniper Elite 4, Watch Dogs 2, Far Cry 4, a whole bunch of titles, and yeah, I was able to play Sniper Elite at 60 FPS on my Series X, and that seemed really cool. If you have a 120 hertz TV, you could run New Super Lucky's Tale at 120 FPS.
The dream. I mean,
I don't know how they haven't been sued by Sega yet, because that Fox is literally just miles per hour. It's Tails.
Yeah,
Come on.
Just Tails with like one less tail, right? Or two less.
It's one tail. It's one tail Tails.
One tail Tails.
But the game, the fact that they were able to quadruple the frame rate from the Xbox Series S, which is the cheaper console, that thing used to run at 30 FPS. Now it runs at 120. that's a pretty big leap, and hopefully we'll see more of that too, in the Xbox lineup. So shout out to FPS Boost. It's pretty cool. Sherlyn, what else is going on?
Yeah, so this is really just interesting for our core audience of true tech nerds. So this week
boy.
too,
Oh,
there was an
no.
announcement that Carl Pei, formerly of OnePlus fame, who announced his new venture called Nothing, I want to say earlier this year or late last year, has bought the other company, this company known as Essential, the assets from Essential, which was Andy Rubin, who was the creator of Android, his phone business. So Andy Rubin basically has transferred Essential's trademarks and logo to Carl Pei's Nothing. So the basically Nothing is
It's Nothing
Essential.
Essential.
Nothing's
Essential is
I
Nothing.
tweeted that day of. That's my joke. Don't steal. No,
So
no,
good.
no.
It's so good.
It's the most.
I think everyone
obvious
made that joke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It
a
is,
very common joke.
It's a good joke, but let's not forget that Andy Rubin was basically pushed out of Google because of sexual harassment claims, right?
And
So
Essential kind of fell apart because of it. Like Essential was holding on by a thread,
Yep.
and then
Yeah.
it just became so difficult to ignore the fact that he's a horrible dude.
he's kind of gross, but he got kicked out with a golden parachute of money from Google,
Right.
and now he's able to sell the assets of this company to make
Like,
even
I
more
love
money.
just failing up.
Failing
Just
up.
just failing up constly. Andy Rubin, good
Yeah.
job.
Andy Rubin.
I
Yep.
mean, well done. But so Essential, for those of you who might not be aware,
Sherlyn, that is not the lesson. Well done.
whatever.
Bravo, sir.
I'm just like, sure, I'm just depressed with the world and can't even be bothered to fight it.
What is
Um,
Nothing? This isn't me being
So,
high
yeah.
and asking questions.
I know.
What is excuse me?
All right.
What is Carl Pei's Nothing?
Yes. What is Nothing?
Carl Pei's Nothing is a startup, okay, that would make so-called smart devices. We talked about this on the episode too, is making smart devices. One of the first products that Pei promised would be a pair of wireless earphones.
Mhm.
But with the purchase or acquisition of Essential's, logo and some of its assets, it feels like Nothing might want to make an Essential phone, which we know how well those did. I mean, when the first Essential phone came out, we were like, it was one of the first all-screen phones, I believe,
Well,
here in the
wasn't
US with an
Essential
with a
working on
notch.
like Essential announced a second phone that looked really, really cool, and
Mhm.
the same
Didn't-
day, I think everyone
Yeah.
blew up about pointing about Andy Rubin as horrible.
Exactly.
And
So
so,
I don't think that ever,
So there's theoretically some really cool stuff that Essential
Yeah.
was working
I
on.
don't know. That first
So-
Essential phone. That
It was trash.
Well, you guys remember we reviewed that, but it was the
Yep.
all screen. Nature was fine, but everything else about it, the camera, battery life,
Yeah.
actual speed of it,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
trash. Yeah.
The PH1, by the way, PH-1 was its name because PHONE phone. Anyway,
Ugh.
it
hate
it was one of the, it had a core fan base around it, but then also after all that brouhaha around Rubin, at the end of last year, a lot of the former employees ended up at a different startup founded by Jason Keats, who was Essential's former head of research and development, and it's called Osum Products. And Osum apparently has plans to release a privacy-focused Android device this year. So maybe there's something cool at Osum, or maybe Nothing's gonna get something from Essential and make phones.
Pairing Android and privacy focus together feels weird to me.
I hear ya, and we'll hear more, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. And Nothing is Essential and Essential Nothing news, and also our little tech news roundup this week.
Cool. Let's move on to what we've been working on. I'm gonna pass this week because it's basically what I've been doing for the past few weeks. Alex, I know you want to talk about your fun new adventures in Color E-Ink. What are you playing with right now?
Yeah, I am playing with a lot of e-ink devices. I'm working on a story for that's hopefully going to be appearing in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it's gauche to say that yet, but
Ooh.
it's probably happening.
I've heard of
probably
them,
happening. yeah, I've called in enough products that'll be really embarrassing if it doesn't happen. So so it's all on me now.
Yes.
But yeah, I think
Been there.
we're starting to see there's a new version of Color e-ink that was just released. Pocketbook just this week announced a new product, which I cannot wait to get into my hot little hands. Hopefully today or tomorrow, we'll see.
Okay.
And yeah, it seems like we're gonna finally be getting some really cool products. Not quite like you can throw out your iPad, but you can wow your techie nerdy friends with your relatively inexpensive color thing.
Was that the one that would look like it's good for comics? I think there were some reports about that. Okay.
And Pocketbook did a Color e-ink last year, but the colors were kind of muddy. It was like fine, but it was don't go out of your way. The colors are supposed to be much more vibrant. It's still only like 100 pixels, it's still like kind of low resolution. Think of this as like, remember that first laptop, or you remember like laptops in the early 90s and they had like 4 colors? It's like like that's where
I do remember that.
Yeah, that's
I don't.
E-ink technology is kind of in like it's still very early stages color wise, but it's happening.
I like that people are keeping the e-ink dream alive. Like, listen, more power to you.
Like just me. It's like
just me. I dig it. I dig it.
But I love it because I do think like I've got an Android e-ink tablet that I use from Onyx Books constantly, and it lasts 2-3 weeks on a charge. I take all my notes on it. Like I'm going to go do an interview after this, and I will be taking all my notes on this thing, and then I can also read books from every bookseller instead of just Amazon.
Yeah,
and it's fantastic. It's buggy as hell, but it's exciting, and like. Will I continue to dream of an iPad? Yes. Will you all mock me? Rightfully so.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I do think I do think we're starting to see a transition there. We're starting to see a really interesting development in the space. And for a lot of devices, like your smartwatches and stuff, it can start becoming a compelling display option again.
Yeah, we're gonna have to dive deeper back into that tech, and also the advances in OLED and mini LED, and kind of everything's more exciting now when it comes to
like
tech, right?
just display technology is just in this really
this is why you have 4 TVs.
Exciting space. Yeah, it is. Like I am a nut for display technology, and I'm really excited about e-ink because I think it's a great opportunity for so many elements. Like you're never going to watch a movie on e-ink, but there's so many other ways it'll work. Ooh, just burp right into the microphone.
Delicious. Love it.
That's
perfect timing for me to take over.
Yeah.
I can't wait
but I do think
to edit that
e-ink
out.
I do think e-ink is really developing rapidly and will provide some really cool opportunities and really environmentally friendly opportunities because it sips so much less power.
That's a good point.
That's honestly why I'm excited about it. Like I want to watch it last 2 weeks on a charge, and I can get that a lot faster with an e-ink than with micro LED.
Agreed.
All right,
Agreed.
so
yes.
I'm excited to get to our picks. That's why I kind of want to quickly shout out what I'm working on. All I want to say though is I'm working on the ThinkPad review will be up soon. I've talked about it for weeks, but these next few days, just keep an eye on Engadget.com. There's a lot of stuff I've gotten briefed on that will be coming out in the next few days and even early next week. So just keep refreshing our site, and I think there's interesting news coming soon. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I'm so pumped.
Secret.
Mystery.
Okay.
I love how Alex, when we were running through the tech news, you've been so out of it that you were like, "Ooh, that happened."
I know. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm learning
I was
so
like,
much today."
You're so lucky you've been out of it. But anyway, Devendra,
yesterday I went to see if I could fit 3 Cadbury eggs in my mouth because that's what I do now.
The big ones or the
the big ones? Yeah, I only got 2 in. My friends all called me a quitter. But yeah,
it's really about the mini eggs. Come on, it's mini egg season. We only get those sometimes of the year. We only get that around Easter.
They were sold out. They didn't have any at CVS. Maybe today. Maybe it'll change.
Maybe today.
Later.
All right, let's move on to our pop culture picks. Charlene, you seem excited about something. What's
I'm excited. Okay, I guess I'm not. Damn. Okay. Every week we gotta pick one, and this week I was like low on options. So anyway, sometimes you want to chill out. You want to watch some bad reality, right? And normally my bad reality is like Keeping Up with the Kardashians or like
The Bachelor.
The Bachelor.
Mhm.
So this time around, though, a lot of people have been asking me if I've seen Bling Empire on Netflix.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then very quickly, in the same breath, people will follow up with, how about Singapore Social? Honestly, okay, so Bling Empire, I started watching, I think this past weekend around Chinese New Year, and
Tag
okay.
yourself in the poster for Bling.
I am definitely not the Kylie Jenner lookalike. Let's just put it that way.
I want to be the guy with just the abs. That's me.
Just the
That's
abs.
me.
I love this guy.
And Kevin is beautiful. I am super into it. Or Kevin. But the show is interesting. It's very like an Asian version of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, except for, you know, it's already done well by starting off its season or series with a Chinese New Year episode. So, and it's not all just Chinese. It's like the Asian diaspora too seems to be well represented. We've got a Japanese Russian woman. We've got a Chinese woman. You've got like, I think there's people who are part Korean in there, which is nice. I think it's a good representation. And it's also kind of like if you wanted more crazy rich Asians, but sort of real. This has all the crazy and a lot of the rich, and also all the Asians. So I feel like this would be fun if you're looking for a reality TV show to just veg out to, just to like not think for once. But because people keep mentioning Singapore Social in the same breath to me, I'm gonna be like, do not, please do not. Singapore Social is not Singapore or social. It's
What is
not.
it?
It's this. It's also like, right. We're looking at the picture for it now on the video version of this podcast, and very few of these people look like actual Singaporeans. A lot of my friends in Singapore have seen it, and they've told me, "Have you seen it? It's so bad." And I'm like, I watched 10 minutes of the first episode and couldn't make it through because it was not representative of the country, and it seemed so fake, and it was very like cringy to watch, not in a good way even. So avoid Singapore Social, and if you must, you can check out Bling Empire. I think it's so far kind of fun. And then I have one like decent other pick that I was trying to use to redeem myself, and if I could only remember
to redeem yourself.
I always have to redeem myself. But okay, so the last reality TV show that I'm going to recommend you guys, that is actually pretty good in my opinion, is Food Network Star. And this is
it's a good show.
I'm glad. Oh, the Venture's approval is all I've been waiting for.
Well, I think most of the Food Network shows are fine. Like they're fun to watch, and you learn something, you know?
Yeah. So Food Network Star is basically about Food Network trying to find its next like big star, which is, I guess, all in the name. So like it starts way back when, and Alex, you'll know this because it's our friend Monica who introduced me to this show. And every time I see her, we're watching this show. It starts way back when, I want to say in the early 2000s. So back when YouTube and like social media wasn't a thing, and the winners of this show would go on to have their own Food Network show. But in recent seasons, the show still appears to be ongoing, by the way. In recent seasons, they more seem to be transitioning to who's the next big food influencer. So the skills you're tested on are not just your food culinary skills, but also your presentation, you as a personality. So I think that's intriguing as a good concept for a show.
I feel like
check it out.
A lot of big Food Network stars have done it, right? Like wasn't
Guy Fieri, according to our producer Ben.
No,
by the way, talk about like an image fix, because I feel like we spent a lot of time ragging on Guy Fieri, and then over the past couple of years, it's been like, no, he's a good guy who gives money to people. I'm like, his food may be kind of crap, but he's a good guy.
He finds he finds the places that you just like only want to go to when you're really drunk and high. And like
that's his brand.
I love to like watch old episodes of that show and just be like,
I know.
I want to shove this giant piece of meat covered in cheese that will kill me in my mouth. This looks terrible. Give it to me immediately. Like I love Guy Fieri for that.
Yeah.
But there's some other people too, but like he's definitely like the big one.
Stand out.
And you're like, wow.
Well, so Bobby Flay is, I think, one of the judges of the show, at least for some seasons and in parts of it. So there's some big names here, and the food always more or less looks good. I always get so hungry watching it, but
love it.
Watch it on a full stomach. I would recommend.
Don't watch any food shows on an empty stomach.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do that. And don't watch it right before you go grocery shopping.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You get too adventurous. Yeah.
You get way too adventurous, and then you're like, well, I've ruined everything. Or at least
Marzipan pomelo watermelon shake is what you try to make.
Oh.
Devindra, what do you have for us this week?
I need something that feels good, so I'm rewatching Ted Lasso, which is a show all about good things. Good people. Love this show. I'm gonna be doing a podcast to talk about the finale next week. So I'll shout that out then. But hey, this show is fantastic. We talked about it before, but it is worth rewatching. It's Jason Sudeikis as an American football coach who goes to the UK to coach football. But it is such a sweet and well written and funny show, and I love all the characters, and like it is everything. It is like a nice bit of comfort food, and it's also so dense with the jokes where you watch it one time, you will likely miss a lot of the like quick jokes because there's just so much packed in there. So it is definitely worth rewatching. If you've seen it already, go back, watch Ted Lasso again. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's one of the best things made in the past year,
And it's on Apple TV Plus, right?
Yes, it is on Apple TV Plus. You probably still have a free subscription if you bought a new Apple device over the past year or so.
So everyone but Sherlyn is probably fine.
Well, she has that iPhone to test, right? So,
I have Apple TV. I have the box right here. Don't even.
Did you buy it recently? That's
I got and I had a review unit for the Fitness Plus testing.
Oh, okay. So you have that.
Yeah. So you're good to go. It's so that is just like a show where you're just like, this is nice.
It's so sweet.
Yeah, you just sigh and like all the weight just drifts away. You're just like, oh, I love it.
Well, Alex, what do you have for us?
I finished The Wilds on Amazon. Did you guys? It looked so stupid, and I was like, you know what? I've got nothing going on. Let's watch a show.
Very stupid, but exactly a show for that.
Yeah, it's like let's watch a show about a bunch of teenage girls trapped on a desert island, and people have been like comparing it to what was the one that we all
Battle
had to read
Royale?
as a kid? No, Battle Royale. They've been playing
Lord of the
Battle
Flies.
Royale, Lord of the
Yeah.
Flies.
Yeah, that one.
And it's much more like Lost, but with like teen girls, because they're on this island and they don't know how they got there, and they don't know that there's like a big overarching mystery and like wonderful use of wig caps. Like at one point, a character has a big like. There's a flash forward reveal and they're just completely bald, and I had to like pause because I was laughing so hard. It's like I'm just having a great time watching it. It's super silly. It's really nice and diverse, which is lovely. Like we've got a number of like Native American main characters, which is fantastic. And it's just like, and you think that these girls are all going to be horrible and mean to each other or whatever, and instead they're like, yeah, let's just work together, and then accidentally eat a pound of edibles and get high on a beach. And like, I mean, what's not to love about that? So highly recommend it. If you've got a Prime subscription, you can go watch it. And don't take it too seriously. Please don't.
I just want to say I am grateful that that's your recommendation, because Alex talks to me about TV shows and films a lot. It's usually the weirdest stuff, and it's usually not good. So I'm just glad.
Or it's like 911. I recently
911 is good. Which one?
So
911, the Texas one, or the?
I've been watching the LA one since it started, and just skipped the Texas one. And then I was like, I got nothing, and I watched.
One's not good, but
it's not good, but
fun.
I love it because it's just like we're gonna have to deal with a volcano in Austin.
A volcano in Texas.
What?
Well, also, didn't Gina Torres recently join that show, or did she join the other one?
She
I'll watch anything she's on.
Yeah, she's in it, and they do this really bad habit of not knowing Texas geography at all. So like when they move from New York to Austin to run their firehouse, they're like clearly driving through West Texas. And it's like, okay, so because it was shot in LA, so that's what they have as their Texas. And there's always like mountains in the back, like actual mountains in the background, which are
and not just like flat cornfield that you pass through most of the Midwest.
And it's so there was this one part where the last episode, they're like, oh yeah, we're driving through, or we're coming from California and we're driving through Austin to go to Houston. And I'm like, why did you do that? Like, did you just want to see Austin?
Yeah,
it was
see
very
how Austin's
sad.
doing. It's
It's
hilarious.
so tragic.
I will. That's 911 Lone Star
Yeah,
Right.
and you have to say
Yeah.
Lone Star every
Lone
time
Star.
you watch it.
That is also the show where Rob Lowe goes into his entire beauty regimen.
Yes.
So in the like in one of the first episodes, it's like, yeah, I put on this this
And he's so
moisturizer and
glossy.
everything.
He's
That's
like
it's real.
half
That's what he
naked
really
and
does.
glossy and talking about his. And
Oh,
you're
boy.
like, your skin
Oh,
is
man.
really nice. Like
Anyway,
I just wait, was that real though? Because I was wondering
think
if
that's
like,
a lot of his real thing. That's what it seems like. But anyway, these shows are ridiculous. I like the core 911 series just because it's like there's a baby in the wall. Somebody flushed a baby down a toilet.
It was so good. They
It's
did.
amazing.
Like Angela
Now I
Bassett's
feel
like,
like I
well, I
can
guess
watch this.
I'm about to
Alright.
fall off a cliff in a
Yeah.
mudslide.
Yeah.
Will I survive? I just beautiful. It's just big dumb disaster movies every week.
Fun disaster porn from
Excellent.
Ryan Murphy, the guy who has way too many TV shows.
Oh, I
But,
love
yeah,
Ryan
thank you.
Murphy.
Thank you for this. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're good. Let's wrap.
Yeah.
All right. Ben, is it clean enough for me to just do the outro?
Yeah, I'll find some way.
You
of-
find somewhere to
yeah,
cut.
I'll find
probably.
some way of doing it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for our episode this week, everyone. Thank you as always for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our very own Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Elman. You can find Alex online at,
Alex H. Crans on Twitter.
and that's on Twitter. And you can find Devindra online at
Devindra on Twitter and at the /filmcast at /film.com.
If you want to send me any questions about Crazy Rich Asians, whether it's the show or the people, you can find me at Sherlyn Lowe on Twitter. Email us your thoughts and feedback at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review, please, on iTunes, and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts, including Spotify.
Woo!
Woo.
Okay, yeah, we got it.
All right.
All right. Well,
So,
I just got a notice that
Mhm.
I might get a power outage soon.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Maybe
you guys
you
cursed
should.
me.
Do you want to save your thing?
Yes,
yeah,
I guess
I'm
I
gonna
can
go
do
ahead
that.
and do
Actually,
that.
that would be a very good idea. Thank
Pause
you
and
for
save,
thinking
please.
about that.
Yeah.
But you can
Thinking
stick around
what
for the
to do
Q&A
about
if
that.
you'd like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
We're
gonna,
gonna
I'm gonna
come to-
go
you don't
prepare
necessarily-
for an
hour is-
interview.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
might bounce on you.
Bye.
Okay.
But
no
I will
worries.
save
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so much,
joining. Yeah.
and put
You
it
can
on.
send
an-
it to
Yeah, I'll put
Yeah.
it on
You
Google
put it on
Drive and send the
WeTransfer.
link.
Mhm.
Okay, or that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But send it
WeTransfer.
to one of us. Anyway, we're still streaming, so let's talk about fun stuff. I've been
Bye, Alex.
banking-
Bye,
Bye,
Alex.
guys.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
I've been banking all sorts of interesting stuff.
Okay.
Like just that I've seen on
Nice.
the internet or like stuff that came up. One, apparently there's a Mortal Kombat movie coming out, and the
I
Red
saw the
Bull
trailer just hit my inbox.
came
Yeah.
out. So that's a thing that's happening. It's going to be on HBO Max on April 16th. I remember the last time they tried to do a Mortal Kombat movie, it was not good.
I would say let's try to do live commentary, but I think we have trouble whenever we try to show video on the stream. So let's
yeah,
not.
live commentary of
Like
the
right now,
Mortal Kombat
yeah.
Trailer.
movie, yeah. I am also not sure whether or not that runs afoul of any kind of like copyright.
It's
sort of stuff.
commentary.
That's what
That
we-
is
yeah.
literally
Oh, yeah,
fair
that's,
use.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It is fair use if you. That's how Mystery Science Theater actually
Yep.
does all of their stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, then there's just like an idea that came up as you were talking about The Last of Us 2 and like people who communicated specifically through whistles. I would bet $100 or more that is based on Silbo, which is a language from the
Mhm.
Canary Islands.
And there's actually a movie, like a thriller, that just came out that kind of features that a little. I need to
Oh,
check
that's
that out. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's A Quiet Place that made people just think about like, oh, there are different ways of communicating. You can not talk, or you could use all sorts of other stuff. Then the only other thing that I have to add to any of the conversation is that I think Guy Fieri owes the comedian Shane Torres some money or something for helping to launder his reputation, because Shane Torres is the one. He's had something in his comedy routine since at least 2017 or so, talking about all the good stuff that Guy Fieri has done, and just because it looks like his blood is Mountain Dew, like y'all make fun of him.
Well, also his restaurant was garbage. Like
Yes.
that's objectively true. But yeah.
So yes, chat, if you want to say anything about, I don't know,
Tell
like,
us your infrastructure
yeah.
woes,
Yeah,
but
tell us
also
your
you can
infrastructure woes, or
send
talk
us an
about
email
like,
or
e-ink
voicemail
whatever.
about that. Yeah.
Actually, if you want to say anything about your infrastructure woes, it would be very interesting if you could send a voice note to podcast@engadget.com, because hearing about people's regional like infrastructure stuff, I think would be pretty interesting.
For sure.
There's also there's something that I wanted to mention during the podcast itself, but we didn't really have time because we were really talking about Texas. But you know, other parts of the country obviously are also affected, but there have been like cell service and fiber outages this week too, over the weekend as well. T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T, Verizon being our parent company, by the way, also had outages, and not just in the Texas area, but nationwide because of the severe weather. So,
but I mean, that the polar vortex, I don't think we showed a picture of it, but it is literally just like a slope through the middle of the country. So like through the Midwest, through everything. It is horrific, and it's getting worse every year, and I don't know what we're gonna do. Yeah,
listening to all this talk of like insulating your pipes or something was very eye-opening for me, just because I was like, Singapore doesn't have any of that. We're just hot year round.
Amazing. Well, you
So
have to deal with humidity. So humidity, like removing
we're insulated against.
Right. Water is the problem, no matter if it's cold or hot. Like that's the big
for
issue.
sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I know in Singapore it was like 20 degrees Celsius, which is probably like 75-ish Fahrenheit. And everyone was complaining it was so cold. They were like, it's winter in Singapore. And I was like,
wow, okay. That is
send them to Texas.
That's why people live in LA, because it never really, or it infrequently goes above.
It gets chilly at night in LA. Like that's the thing, but people
might be 20 Celsius is more like 68 Fahrenheit. That was my bet.
Okay.
Yeah. Once you get below 70, then you start to feel a chill. So then, okay, fine.
But 68 is nothing to me.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the Killer Goose has been saying like, "Yo, Ben, like nice shelf," but then also said, "Oh, actually, we actually don't know who the different people are." So I think he's actually talking to you, Devendra, that you have.
I don't know.
Shelf.
I don't know.
By the way, and someone also asked, I think it's the Killer Goose, asked if Mark works for us. No, Mark is just a really nice regular audience, viewer, listener, you know. He's just a friend of Gadget.
Yeah, that is really important also. Like someone who can help build the community.
Yes.
Like I really appreciate that. We've talked pretty much since the very beginning of starting this show about wanting to build a community around this show. And Mark, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. And we appreciate everyone who comes back frequently. Yeah, so now it's just like Room Raider. So
please don't.
So I'm hearing, by the way, that we have a breaking update about a Ted Cruz image to share with the stream. Let's see it, video team. I don't have a lot of details around it, but it it will be ready in about a minute. So those of you who like
that's how breaking news works. We have to prepare it. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Stay around. There is something coming up. But
speaking of tech stuff, like close to the core stuff, I'm happy that the Outer Wilds is coming to Switch.
Sure.
I heard about Outer Wilds
it's a great
few
game.
Weeks ago.
Yeah.
That it was just like, it's one of those sorts of games that kind of makes your heart full. And I was like, I would love to play this on the Nintendo Switch, like my primary way of gaming right now.
Well, what do you mean by hearts full? Because it's also a game that will make you confront the nature of like space travel and how terrifying it can be. So there's that too.
It's
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hearing the picture ready or something.
What's happening?
A breaking image. If we zoom in on that Ted Cruz picture for a moment there, I think we'll see that there was some kind of smuggling.
Of course, he put his dog in overhead luggage.
Cancun. In what looks to be economy class, I don't know, but that's not allowed. That's not allowed. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, this is not a real picture. Thank you very much. Yes. Just in case anyone.
Thank you so much to our video team for the quick Photoshop of dog in overhead rack.
Well, we shouldn't laugh too much because there was the story of one airline that forced a woman to put her dog in the overhead and it died.
Yeah.
It suffocated.
That is not.
Don't put your dogs there.
So I don't know whether or not I want to really talk that much about Outer Wilds because like I haven't played
Yeah.
Outer Wilds. I don't
Okay,
want to get
I'm not gonna
spoiled
spoil
on it.
anything, but yeah.
And I've been having so much fun playing Hades. Like
Mhm.
there's so few stuff that ends up, or so few like pieces of entertainment that end up not spoiled for me. And
Mhm.
so my brother actually got me Hades for Christmas this year, and I've been having so much fun because it
So good.
feels like it just came out of the blue for me. Like
Yeah.
it is so well done, so completely fleshed out.
It's also hard to spoil too, because it's just a game about that grinding experience, right? Of just like fighting. Oh, you find some new powers, keep going.
Well, yeah, but also like I didn't know that there were like, some of the Greek gods come in earlier, some of the Greek gods come in
Yeah.
later. That's what I'm
Yep.
all about. So yeah, looking forward to Outer Wilds. In terms of like Switch stuff that I'm really excited about, Matt Smith a while ago said, "Hey Ben, I think that you would really like the fact that what is it? Apex Legends is coming out." And this was in like October or November. It's been put off for a long time, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that it's going to be actually coming. It's actually going to be coming to Switch in March or so. Like they've got all sorts of new details. Apparently, the install file is going to be relatively large. It's going to be like 30 gigs on its own, which is a bummer. I really should have gotten a bigger SD card, micro SD for this thing. And then like the Outer Wilds coming out a bit later. Because I'm pretty sure that there's no other new news about Zelda Breath of the Wild, but underground, right?
Sort of. I don't know.
No, but I thought there's no new news. Is that correct?
No, there's no new news.
Okay.
Not the sequel. Probably not till like E3 time-ish, basically. Yeah.
So the chat is poor Eli Parker, who just joined us, asked if we are talking about the power. They're waiting to hear us talk about the power, and D-Man and Mark Dell were both kind enough to say, sorry, this is near the end of the show. All that power chat happened in the beginning, but you can
always rewind. Yeah. And subscribe for the audio version of this podcast.
Oh, the audio version will have a clean, wonderful, easy to follow version of the conversation we had. So make sure you download or listen to that whenever it's available. Should be either late today or early tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I forgot to tell Alex before she left, like she doesn't even need to stick around because I know what the post-credits Easter egg.
The Easter egg.
Yeah, one of the things that you miss if you don't listen to the audio version of the show. There's a fun Easter egg at the end, and here I'll spoil it right now. It's going to be Alex talking about how she tried to fit so many Cadbury eggs into her mouth.
Of course, I was there when it happened. I was there listening to her talk when it happened, and it was great.
So, were you guys playing Fuzzy Bunny, or was that just like something that she did for fun?
She just does. She's got some time on her hands, and she's got Cadbury eggs on her hands, and then in her mouth.
I think it's some Cadbury's. Yeah.
Yes.
So one Ricardo Shiroma says that wind power is used in cold weather in Denmark. The Denmark grid is 57% wind power. Of course, Denmark grid is 57% wind power because Denmark is just in general better.
But also very small too, right? So it's easier with smaller countries. Yeah.
Yeah. Forgive my geographic stupidity, but is it Denmark that is like home to a bunch of like really top class hydrolytic engineers?
That would make sense given that it's surrounded by water.
Yeah. Like they are some of the best flood engineers on the planet because
you would have to be
with it for their entire existence as a country.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is Oslo is a big like hub too up there for like, and I keep saying up there, but I don't really know.
That's Norway, yeah.
But Norway, Oslo in Norway. Back when I worked in energy and oil and gas, that was where my boss would keep going. We were pivoting to turbines and we were pivoting to wind. So there's a lot of that going on. But I mean, in a lot of other parts of the world, right? Wind energy, wind farms are a huge thing that apparently not here.
And
if
I mean,
you want to
they'll
get
be
political about it, it's also
Mhm.
like that's why this is one of the reasons why there should probably be more not sanctions. Sanctions are kind of like international things, but like regulations on oil and gas, because I
Mhm.
mean, it's not like they're going to get out of the power business. Period. It will have, if you put high enough taxes on Exxon will become a renewables company. Like
Mhm.
they already have a lot of the infrastructure. They've been looking at it probably
Oh
for
yeah,
decades
a lot
already.
of the energy companies who are looking at renewables, they're
You're
just
really
whining about
just
it until they're there,
yeah,
until it makes them money.
you
Yeah.
really just gotta force them to
Yep.
like pour more gas on that fire, so to speak.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
they're ready for it. It's
They
just
are. I think we're waiting for that like revolution in battery tech. Like that's the thing. Like storing renewable power is still
and
like the
like
major
room temperature
danger.
semiconductors, but like when's that going to
Mm,
happen?
mm,
Or not room
To
temperature semiconductors, room temperature superconductors.
mhm.
to one quick question from Sartak Dior, I believe. It says, when is the next live podcast scheduled? It's scheduled for next week at 10 a.m. Eastern.
On Thursdays.
On
What's that date?
Thursdays, that's when we do
25th.
our live streams. And you can come back and join the chat, which has a lot of fun people, including Mark Dell, D-Man, our regulars. We've got Killer Goose also here. You've apologized for your so-called bad English at least twice now. I've seen
Don't
it's
worry
not
about
bad
it.
at all, and no
Yeah.
apologies
Yep.
needed.
But also follow us on Twitter, because sometimes if we change things, that's where we'll announce it. So sometimes we start later because of guests and other reasons. So I'm at Devindra. That's at Sherlyn Lowe.
Am I the only one on this podcast, like technically maybe a little like half of a host? Am I the only one who's monolingual? Like
No, I'm monolingual. Yeah.
oh, okay.
I haven't had any other languages to really dive into.
So
So,
yeah, but
I think there's not a lot of questions left in the chat. I might be
All
wrong.
right.
yeah, and so let me bring up my credits for the
But yeah, thank you for joining us again, as always, everyone. It's good to see you guys, and the new names, the old names, the quiet regulars who have come out of lurking today to talk about Texas Power and power systems in general.
Oh yeah, I tend to lose things now.
We
I
lost
just
your
got-
camera. Now
yeah,
we have
no.
a chest view.
Yeah, no, that's my fault because I tend to lose things now, like with the situation between my external monitor and the laptop monitor and everything. Anyway, thanks everybody for sticking around. The stream comes to you via our video team, which is led by Kyle Mock with Owen Davidoff, Julio Barrientos, Luke Brooks, and sometimes Jason Shark, although he hasn't been around for a while. I should take him off the credits.
He's part of the team.
But again, it's powered by everyone in the chat. It's so much fun interacting with people in the chat. It's so much fun hearing about Quebecois power systems and some people who are closer to Texas and all of that. So if you stuck around this long, seriously, rate the show on iTunes. Even if you'd watch it on YouTube, just rate the show on iTunes. It helps other people.
Super helpful.
We all live in a world of algorithms. This show is mostly about algorithms. You know that it helps us. We'll see you next week.
Later.
Thanks, y'all.